Hi, and thanks for joining me again this week for our lesson walkthrough. This week we're looking at Joshua together. So we've covered the time in the wilderness and we're going into the book of Joshua. Now, if you're familiar with this book, there's lots of accounts and stories which we could look at. And we will look at those in the next weeks. What I wanted to do in this week's lesson is to focus on Joshua as a person, who he was, where he came from, and how God fulfilled his promises, and a bit of his character. So right on the front cover of a lesson, if you haven't downloaded it already, go there to truewaykids.com. It's there to free to download and print to use with your family or at your church. So there's a front cover. We see Joshua there with his family, and it picks up off a point of this week's lesson of him saying a famous verse in Joshua, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord together." And that's a big point I wanted to bring about. Part of the reason why I've been making these lessons True Way Kids is because I wanted to study the Bible at home with my son, and I wanted to encourage other parents to do the same thing. So it pleases God when we as a family serve God together. As you carry on in the park on the first page, we have the early introduction. And there I just have a couple of points which emphasizes things which I think is important for us to teach as we look at Joshua as a character. The first one is about patience. Now, it took the children of Israel 40 years wandering around in the wilderness before they were ready to come into the promised land. Yet God kept his promise and God brought them in. And sometimes we get so impatient. Our kids want things that they're not ready for. Your child might ask for a toy which is for an older child, or may ask to do an activity which is just for grown-ups to do. And you can emphasize that we don't let them do these things because it's dangerous for them. And so God doesn't allow us to do things at the wrong time. We should wait. That's one lesson. Finally, that God rewards our trust. If you've done a lesson with us a few weeks ago looking at the spies and who went into the promised land, we can remember that only two of them said that we should go in, and it was only them who now are allowed to enter the land. Joshua was one of those two. We can see that while many weren't allowed in, Joshua's trust in God was rewarded. He said, "Let's be strong, courageous. God will keep his promises," and God did keep his promises to Joshua. Then we're talking about being strong and courageous. Joshua had been into a land. He knew what he was going to face this time. He knew about the giants there, about the big walls and everything. And yet God said to him, "I'm going to be with you. As I was with Moses, I will be with you. I'm never going to leave you. Be strong and courageous." And so we can remind our children that sometimes they will be in situations which are a bit scary, but God's always going to be there with them. And finally, as I emphasized at the start, we're going to look at it pleases God when families serve him together. And that's an important part again, that we teach our children. It's not about my ministry, it's about our ministry, about serving God together. What I've done this week is I've changed the lessons a bit different. So there's 2 pages of the story which you can print off and use. It's less words and simpler, I think, than usual. It's got some pictures that go above it. So you can print it off and even make it into a little book, or you can print it front and back. Whatever works for you. But that just tells the story of after the 40 years of the wilderness, God appoints Joshua as leader. He knows what's facing, but yet he's strong, courageous, and he chooses to serve his God together with his family. Another idea which you could possibly do is, after reading through the story of your child, is to cut out these pictures. Then you can ask your child to sort them and reorder them to show that they understand the story. Games and activities, as I usually suggest, is number one is a family tree. So get some photos of your family, and you can help your child to cut them out and make a family tree on a piece of paper. I'm sure they will enjoy that. Their aunties, their uncles, their cousins. You can even go around taking the photos of them. There's lots of ideas on YouTube of how you can do that and on the internet. Another one is a family portrait. So the idea for this is to take some photos. Take your phone, take a camera to one of your favorite places, and take photos of your family which you're going to display around your home. Alternatively, why not sit down together with your children and paint a picture or draw a picture of your family, buy a nice frame for it and put it somewhere in your house. And then finally, it's about serving God together. As I mentioned at the start, God's pleased when we as our family serve. And often our children, especially younger children, as I attend these lessons, be for under fives, they can think, "Oh, my parents can serve God." But how can we do it as a family? So why not take your child to maybe tidy up the neighbour's garden or the church garden, or to welcome people as they arrive at church on Sunday, or to make soup for somebody or some simple meal for somebody is in need or is maybe not well at this time, serve God with them and encourage them that as you serve God together, how it pleases Him. That brings us through onto the worksheets. The first one is just a simple maze worksheet, and there we have some characters from the Bible, and it's about who made it to their new home in the promised land. And they will find there's only Joshua who made it there. Again, talking about families, family trees. Here's a simple activity. There's a picture of a family above, and there's just their heads below. What you need to do is cut out each of these squares and glue them in the right places to form their family tree. Who lives where, new homes. Well, you will have some pictures of animals, and then you have to draw a line to the right house for the right animals. So the dog to the kennel, for example, the duck to the pond, and so on. Shapes and numbers. Worksheet is called Count the Shapes. Simple picture of a house. The child has to count how many triangles there are, and so on, and write the number in the right place. Well, this week's craft is all about we will serve the Lord together. It's a simple house used with lollipop sticks. The instructions are all below. And really there's two ways you can do it. So what I recommend is that you print a template onto some thick card. You can either cut it out first or at the end, whichever is easier for you. And in this place you can either cut out or take a photo of your family, cut it out and put it in place, or you can draw a picture of your family there. So I have two here I made for you. One is here, a picture of our family. We've just cut out on a piece of paper, glued it on top, and there it says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And there you just stick on lollipop sticks in the places shown on the template. It's nice and easy. Once it's all dry, just cut around and it's ready to go. You can hang that somewhere in your house. As I mentioned, if you haven't got a photo of your family, or maybe if you're doing this in a church setting with a number of kids, and it would be difficult to have a family photo of each one, you could of course send it home blank and they could do the photo when they get home. But another way to do it is just to get the child to draw a simple picture of their family in a gap, and then after you can follow the rest of the instructions, so stick on the lollipop sticks and cut it out, and so on. It's a nice simple craft, a good reminder for them to put in the house of serving God together as a family. Finally, we have the coloring page for this week. There again of Joshua and his family. They're nice and easy for them to print out. And the final page is this. It's worship time. It's a couple of songs. It's for me and my house. Be strong, courageous, and wherever you go. And we have some prayer suggestions. And then next week's lesson be uploaded on the 14th will be Jericho. As I mentioned, we will start to look at some of the accounts that happen in Joshua in more detail. And that's it for this week's lesson. But I really hope that it's a blessing to you. I really hope that you can have a quality time at home, just exploring God's word with your child or in your children's ministry. We are praying for you. Thanks again for all your encouragements and your texts and emails and messages throughout the week. If there's anything we can do to make these lessons more adaptable to you, please let us know. And otherwise, I hope to see you again next week as we look at the lesson of Jericho together. Well, may God bless you and have an amazing week.